Hey guys, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? And I am back for our weekly Thursday genealogy chat. I'm sorry I missed you guys last week. I was actually out of town and enjoying an opportunity to get away for a bit and got to do one of those things that every genealogist wants to do, which is visit Ellis Island, which was a fantastic trip, and one that if you ever get the opportunity, I would encourage you to do. There's an amazing amount of information there. Even though I didn't personally have anyone come through Ellis Island, the history, the social history, the understanding of what those immigrant ancestors potentially went through when they came into the U.S. was an amazing experience, and one that I think will make me a better researcher as well. Hey, Lily. I'm so glad you made it today as well. So guys, as you're coming in, I would love it if you would give me a genealogy win. In other words, if you've had a genealogy win this week, something that's you've discovered unexpectedly or you finally found after a long search, pop it in the chat. I'd love to be able to celebrate with you there. I can tell you I did have a genealogy win earlier this week for the very first time in a long time. I actually, because of one of those thoughts that came to my head as I was away from my office and actually at Ellis Island, I had a kind of an idea form about my ancestor. You guys know my brick wall, Joanna Barrett out of North Carolina. She was an Irish immigrant, and I haven't been able to figure out where she was before she got to North Carolina. Anyway, so basically I did what I often do when I get stuck, and I threw everything I knew out the window. Not literally, but I do all my assumptions out and kind of started over. And for the very first time, I actually have a potential connection back into Ireland. And I think I've got a clue to work with as to where she might have come from in Ireland. And that's a really big win for me. I don't still know who exactly, or if this is exactly going to pan out, but to have a clue and to be able to work towards it, that's a big thing for this brick wall. So I'm super excited to have that. Lily says, you've gone to Ellis Island as well. Not been able to spend as much time as you would like. I know, I didn't go there for research, guys. I really, it was purely just vacation and enjoying it. And my husband and I thoroughly enjoyed using the audio tours and kind of going our self-paced way through there. So super excited about that. All right, so a couple of announcements, and then we're going to dive right into a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is improving our search for our ancestors in the databases. So hey, Danny's here. Yay, from Loveland, Ohio. Yes, you had a maternal grandmother who came through in 1895. If you haven't had a chance, Danny, definitely go. It's so exciting. Hey, Barbie from Alberta, and Dave is back. Yay, glad you're here. Okay, guys, just so you know, the Family History Fanatics, Devin and Andy over there on the Family History Fanatics, they have their wonderful YouTube channel. They are doing their summer virtual conference on June 5th, so coming up soon, but it is not too late to register for that. I'm going to actually put the link in the comments here. History Fanatics virtual conference. It's hard to type when you're live online. Did you guys know that? All right, so I'm going to put the link there. I'm actually going to be a part of that. I will be talking about newspaper research. It's a brand new talk for me, and so I'm super excited about it. I found some really cool stuff that I'm excited to be able to include. So that will be there as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, oh, Lily's going, yay! Well, I'm going to be there too, Lily. So that'll be good. Let's see what else. Oh. Big news. MyHeritage came out with a new photo feature today. I actually just posted a blog post today, and I don't typically post on Thursdays, but here, let me give you a link to that. It's about photo repair. I've already gone over and played with it some, so I think you really will enjoy it. And it's a way to be able to correct some of those little scratches and folds and tears in a photo. So I'm going to go ahead and put my link to the post that I write on that, so you can learn more about it there and get all the links that you need for that. So that's a super exciting thing that just came out today. So yeah, really super excited about that. Let's see. Hey, Pat. Yay, glad you're here from Tennessee. Debbie, oh, you're going to be at the conference too. Wonderful, Debbie. So glad. Hey, Linda, glad that you could make it. Okie doke, guys. Let's talk about doing a better job of searching, or another way of searching in the databases, such as Ancestry, Find My Past, My Heritage, Family Search. And that is the no surname search. I get asked about this one quite a bit. And so I wanted to share with it again. I've talked about it at different times over the years, but it's one of my favorite ways of searching for a lost ancestor, shall we put it. Because, so why would I do that? Well, sometimes I don't know. I simply don't know what my ancestor's last name is. Maybe it's a name that was changing. So you know how surnames sometimes were fluid. You guys have heard. Sometimes my ancestors were Howards. Sometimes they were Harwoods. Sometimes they were some other combination of the word. And I don't always know exactly which spelling they're going to use, and how far down the results list I have to go to get to the right spelling, or the spelling that was being used at that time. And so I decide, sometimes what I found was that if I just didn't even use the surname, and I put in information such as the first name. Maybe I'm researching James, whom I think should be James Harwood, or Howard, and I don't know what name he's going to show up with, and I never did know. And so I put in James. I happen to know his exact birth date from the family Bible. I put that in. I can put in his wife's name. I can put in children's names. Whatever combination of information that I actually already know, I'm going to put that in and search. So everything that I would normally put in, but just not a surname. And so that will sometimes give you a lot of results. Oftentimes it's a lot of results. So I try to give as much extra information outside of that surname. And then I'm going to sift through. It takes more time, yes. But sometimes you can find some really interesting ways that a census taker either wrote the name down, or the transcriber transcribed the name. I had a gentleman who normally I would research, and his name was always really pretty consistently Haley. Various spellings for that, but Haley. It was a common name. It was fairly easy to find amongst all the, dare I say, misspellings, or spelling variations, I should say. And so I was often able to find him, but there was at one point where I completely lost him for a number of years in the census records and could not find him anywhere. And he was under the name of Hartig, Hartig. Not a spelling variation I would have ever in my wildest imaginations come up with for him. So by doing that no surname search, I just searched on his first name. I put in his birth year, his death year. I don't think I used the death year, his location of where he lived. And I think I put in one of his children's first names. And that's what showed up. Now, how do you know? How do you know that if you're researching on that surname or without that surname, how do you know that the John that you find is the right John that you're looking for? So if I find in the census records, well, you're going to have to continue to do your due diligence, and you're going to need to match up. Does the birth date match? Does the location match? Do the family members match in that census record or in those other records? Does the other stuff make sense? Sometimes as genealogy researchers, we have to sit back and think, does it make sense? And is this right? And so that's what I do. And it's a way that I can typically pick up ancestors if I've lost them in those records and can't quite find them. So it's definitely a variation. It's similar to doing kind of a wildcard search when you don't know exactly what that surname is, but you can put in the surname, and then you can use the asterisk to replace certain letters. So if it's a long surname or a complicated surname that has just multiple variations for spellings, you can use that asterisk and do what is called that wildcard search. And as you know, if you've ever done a wildcard search, you can end up with a lot of results. And so it can take a while to work through them, but it can get your ideas flowing as well, and sometimes get that research moving back. So I can definitely try those wildcat searches, but consider doing a no surname search. Debbie said your Lakins were on a list as Larkin, Lakin, Bacon. Bacon, I like that one. Yeah, definitely. Hey, Kim, you're in the Cleveland Clinic parking garage. Oh my gracious, just waiting and learning. Talk about multitasking. So I hope everything's going well for you, Catherine. Catherine couldn't find her uncle anywhere in the 1940 census in West Virginia. You found his daughter Charlene's name was unusual enough that you searched only on it and found their family. Absolutely, Catherine. That is a wonderful way to also search. When you have sometimes a surname and maybe it's not coming up for whatever reason, whether, the misspelling, the handwritings, all those various reasons that we see, you can search on just the first name. So sometimes, like we said, you can actually put in all your information and search on a child. Okay, so you can search on a child if to find the rest of the family. There have been times when I've only searched when I leave off the first name and will search for a surname. If I'm trying to capture all the children and I'm not so sure, sometimes I can do the opposite of a no surname search and do a no first name search. So that's another way, which can help sometimes when you're stuck on a, what should I call it? Nicknames. When nicknames are, if they went by nickname and that gets kind of muddied in there, drop off that first name, but use the surname. And you can do the exact same thing as well, because we all know those names go kind of haywire out there on us. That is for sure with that. So don't be overwhelmed when you get a lot of results back. Just grab a cup of coffee or grab a cup of tea and just start sifting through those. And you'll be able to come up with, hopefully, the right match for your ancestor. I love looking at ancestors' names. It seems like we always end up with a number that are going to be, how should we say, common names that are hard to find, or we find too many of them, and that can be an issue. But sometimes we find those that even common names can be misspelled and can be difficult to find as well. So would be interesting. How many of you listening, just feel free to pop in the comments, how many of you are actually using these no surname searches when you search for your ancestors with that? Or if you're doing a wildcard search, do you use these variations on searches in order to find your ancestor in the records? I love Catherine's suggestion of searching for someone else in the family who maybe has an unusual name. So if you're stuck and that no surname isn't working, the name Charlene. So there probably not as many Charlenes out there as there are Marys. And so that's an excellent way to find it. The other thing would be, I'm sorry, just the thought just went right out of my head. I'll come back to it. So Debbie's done the same thing. Barbie, you've not done it, but you will. Excellent. Definitely want you to try it. June's definitely using those names variations. So I think that's a fabulous way to go about it. Sometimes I like to go in, and each of the databases is a little bit different. They will have Find My Past does this, where that you can put in the name that you're searching, whether it's a first name, surname, full name, and it'll ask you whether you want the exact spelling or if you want to allow the name variations. Guys, I always upfront, right off the bat, do the name variations. I rarely ever ask for an exact spelling. My ancestors it just wasn't consistent enough across the board to use those exact. So be sure and click those little buttons where it says name variations, because that will help you maybe come up with some ideas of ones that you've not used before and that you wouldn't have thought of on your own. So I like to do that, particularly when I'm researching outside of my normal expertise, which is the South. But if I'm researching in England, I like to do that because I don't always know what might be a common nickname, what might be a common spelling or spelling variation for a name might just be not something I recognize because I'm not in those records as often. So that's really important. Yes, Lily says, always do the name variations. Definitely. June, that's exactly what I meant. I lost my train of thought a minute ago. She said, always look for a known neighbor. Absolutely. Sometimes you do those regular searches, no name searches, first name only searches. last name only searches, and you still come up with nothing. So if you know who the neighbor was, if you know who their friends were, search for them. I've done that a number of times. I'll go back to the last known place I can find them in the census. I look and see who lives on either side of them, and then I research for those folks in the next census record, and hopefully can find them next to each other. That can be very helpful. We talk a lot about the spelling variations, but also what is happening sometimes, and I've been coming across that today, actually, in a research I'm doing with somebody, is that the census record is just in such poor shape that it's faded. And, you might get a first name, you might get the ages and those kinds of things, but the name column was so faded that we're not able to read it. We can't figure out exactly what it says. So that's caused us to have to look for other things when it comes other records. So sometimes being able to look for the neighbor, if parts of the census record are, didn't survive as well, if they're not as clear, by going to some of the neighbors, you can research them as well. So definitely. Kathy says she did all those tips in order to find her mother's family in the 1940 census and nothing. Oh dear, I'm so sorry to hear that. You put in the next door neighbors and you found they had been skipped altogether. Kathy, I'm almost not surprised that you said that, because I thought, well, did they get skipped? The reason I say that is in the 1940 census, my grandmother is not in there. They have my grandfather and they have my father as a little boy, but they have my grandfather's wife as the neighbor girl. She's actually in there twice, and my grandmother's not in there at all. So that's totally going to mess up future genealogy researchers. But, and I think sometimes I see those in the 1940 census, but I think it's because when we're looking at that 1940 census, we often know those people, or we have more intimate knowledge of the family than, say, we do for a family in the 1850 census. So I think sometimes it's easier for us to come up and say, yes, they did get skipped. Whereas sometimes in the 1850, we don't know, there are more variations that we don't necessarily know. But in 1940, you may know, I know they were in that house because I was in that house, kind of thing. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. Hey, Emma from Nova Scotia, you've been searching for using their middle name as well as nickname John, Jack versus John. Excellent. Middle name. Yes, you can absolutely search on middle names as well. Some families have kind of a history. They'll have a kind of a tradition of going by a middle name. So thank you for reminding us of that. That's definitely a good thing to remember on that. Also, sometimes they went by initials, so that helps as well. Definitely. Flo, you were able to find information on your second great-grandfather by using those techniques. Wonderful, wonderful. He also had a unique name, Napoleon Bonaparte Sowers. I love that. But you know what? I've actually seen other men named Napoleon Bonaparte with a different surname, because people would very over times name after famous people. So I've seen that actually before, and I see that even in my own family tree. So I love that example, though. I think it's great. June said those ink blots can be a problem. Yes, on census record, ink blots are terrible. Can be a terrible problem. They always happen to be in the wrong spot when you're researching. All right, guys. So that's what I really wanted to chat with you guys about today. I want you to experiment with those no-surname searches. You know what? I've got a post on that. Let me add that to the list here real quick of links. So if you want to learn more about that and see screenshots of step-by-step of one that I have done, feel free to do that. Here is the link to that. I'm going to pop that in the comment section. Feel free to check out that post, because I have screenshots of exactly what I did, and that might be helpful to you to see that. And I think you'll enjoy that. Can you use initials? Also, I never know if I should use Wilhelm or William. Diane, that's an excellent question. So yes, you can use initials when you're putting in the search terms. And I find those harder to do, but yes, you can absolutely do that. And then William versus Wilhelm, I would do both. So sometimes what I do is I'll create a list of variations. So if I have names like that, William versus Wilhelm, I'll actually just make a little table and check off, like, do all my Williams and then go back and do all my Wilhelms, or however many variations you want to do with that. So yes, I don't always know which I should use. And so that's why, and with William and Wilhelm, Diane, I might try a wildcard search and do WIL and then put an asterisk, which would be for your wildcard search, and it would actually capture both. So you might capture other things as well, but that might actually help you a bit. You can try it and see, and make sure if you don't get too many results on that. Carol said her dad always went by his initials, and I think most people didn't know his given name. Carol, that's a really excellent point. I was really struggling and couldn't figure out why I couldn't find my ancestors in like the 1860. And the problem was my ancestor went by his middle name, a nickname of his middle name, but all the records used his first name. And that one took me a long time to untangle with that. I finally found the only family member who was quite elderly at the time and has since unfortunately passed away, who actually knew what his name was. I got lucky, and so she was able to kind of put that. I had built a case, and she was able to give me the final piece that did that. But you're absolutely right. Sometimes they might go by a nickname, but every record online could be by their first name or their real name. So depends on kind of what that name would be. William is often used for William. WM is often used for William. Absolutely. I would include that in Carol. Carol in news. Diane, when you're doing William, Wilhelm, definitely like the WM for William. For those of you who have John's, JNO, I came across that today. So it just as a reminder, it will sometimes look like that as well. So I want you to remember that as well. Carl, Charles could also be interchanged. Oh, that drove Kathy crazy for a while. I know, right? So yes, I had a gentleman. So my ancestor's name was Stephen Caswell Haley, and he went by the nickname Kaz. And the family traditionally went by the middle names, but the records typically used Stephen, or, whatever their first name was. So that was the one that I had to really kind of tease out a bit. And that's the one where those no surnames are using a surname with no first name search. So a no first name search really helped me decipher out who was actually, who matched everything else, and kind of took away that first name field so I could look at all the other data with that. So, all right, guys, I want you to get out there, head into your favorite genealogy database and see what you can come up with. You can also look, one last tip. I keep thinking about, Debbie said a family friend went by Stubb. I know some of the surnames, some of the nicknames are really quite interesting. I had an aunt who went by the nickname Sister, because that is very common in the South, that the oldest daughter would be go by Sister for the younger siblings. And when I started asking about other cousins about her, and I was using her name, which was Elton, they had no clue who I was talking about. And so I said, well, it's, Winnie's daughter. And they went, oh, you mean Sister. They knew all about her. They knew her personally. So it was just kind of a funny type of thing there. So anyway, definitely try a no surname search, try the wildcard search, try no first name search, and see what kind of information you just might come up with. I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to come back and pop them in the comments below. So anyway, I'm going to head out. I'm going to let you guys get back into your research. Barbie has a great one there for Gladys Margaret Lee, and her middle name, she went by Pearl. I know, isn't that? Now, how would we ever figure that out, right? So, but that's fun. Thank you so much for giving me your examples. I love seeing what you guys are doing, because it does remind me of things that maybe I had forgotten about. It also helps me to learn new ways of doing things, because different family naming traditions, different nicknames appear in different parts of the country and in different countries when it comes to your research. And it's impossible to be an expert in all of that, that's for sure. All right, guys, I will see you next week. I want you to have a fabulous rest of the day and good luck with your research. Bye, guys.